Compassion is the most powerful force ever. Jesus was moved with compassion and healed all those that came from him. It's, again, I know it keeps saying felt experience.
Yeah.
But people had a felt experience with real, tangible Jesus, and that experience healed them physically, mentally, emotionally. That's my belief. I know it doesn't always highlight that, but they talk about mental illness. They talk about all different things. So spiritually, mentally, physically healed through compassion.
Wow.
But compassion's such an extraordinary thing because it's not sympathy. It's not pity. It's actually being with a person in their pain, in who they were created to be. So Jesus made space to be with. An act of being with was actually the process of receiving compassion.
Like you have to mourn with those who mourn. So
Exactly.
Hi, welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we teach you how to live fully alive, co-labor with God, and change the world. And I'm your host, Chris Valentin. And I have a very special guest from a lot of dimensions, actually. Special, Laura Duncan. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Laura is her maiden name is Damaris. And I tell stories all the time about getting saved in this Jesus movement. And that was actually in her grandparents' house.
Yeah.
We all know we know the same people. And I actually proposed to my wife in her grandparents' house when she was 13, by the way. Yeah, super rocking the cradle there. And you're also a former student, 2001.
Yeah, 2001.
You semi-graduated.
Yes, I semi-graduated.
Kind of snuck into class and stayed the whole year.
Yeah.
I think there's a place we can get some revenue going on right
exactly. Here. With interest.
Exactly, with interest. That could be very expensive. Yeah. So Laura, I'm reading some notes here because part of your life I don't know. So I like, when we were bringing you in, I'm like, I know her. Yeah, her grandparents, her family, like they were. I buried Art Kipperman, which was your uncle.
Yeah.
And he was my mentor that I tell a story about, like, who do you want to be your spiritual father? And by the way, Ed Damaris was the other one that when I tell that story.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
They brought Ed and Art, and they said, which one do you want to be your father? And I chose Art.
Good job.
Yeah, good job. Exactly.
They're both great men, though.
Yeah. And Ed's still walking with God. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So you're the creator of the Compassion Method. Well, before we get too far into that part, your husband went to school of ministry and had ALS.
Yeah.
Can we tell that part of the story? Because this is probably part of the piece of how it's all got connected,
right?
Yeah,
definitely. So we came in 2001 and we got to come to school. We actually started the first supernatural school ministry in La Paz, Mexico.
Oh, you did? That's
came down.
right. I forgot about all
that. It was a long
that.
time ago. That was like 2004.
Yes,
Had our third baby down there.
I remember you were eternally pregnant
Exactly.
there.
I was. I had 4 kids. So I was always pregnant. So I had her down there, which was really exciting. And we came back, kind of got into raising small children and everything. And one cool story about Jeff that's just, I think, is important. So he had a healing ministry down in Mexico, and he would go and clear out hospital floors down there. He'd just pray for the sick all day long on the streets and the hospitals, everywhere. We go. So many healings. He worked in the healing rooms.
Yeah.
But he came back and he didn't have to, but he chose to work to provide for us.
Yeah.
We had 4 kids at the time. He didn't feel like he was supposed to be in full-time ministry, so he would work. But then after work, he would go up to the hospital. He made, with like Marks a lot, free prayer sign. And so he'd get off work. He did post office. He delivered mail.
Yeah, I remember
Get off work.
that.
And then he would go and put a free sign up by the hospital down below.
I remember that
and
too.
And people would just come and stop, and they would get prayer. And he would just, had such faith for healing, which is hard because he actually ended up dying not being healed. But his faith is extraordinary because he would still go to the healing rooms in a wheelchair to pray for others.
I know.
because he was
Crazy.
like,
I
I'm going to
remember
keep
those
praying. I'm going
days.
to keep believing regardless of it.
And he had ALS for like 18 months.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
18
really
months start to finish
struggle.
from what we knew. Obviously, it
Yeah.
was genetic, so he was born with it, but we only knew for 18 months.
Oh, it's genetic. You're
It
born
is
with
genetic.
it.
Yeah. So,
Wow, that's tough.
yeah, it's very tough. But so he was sick for 18 months, but completely going after God the whole entire time. I mean, he wrote a book that year just all about pursuing God's promises regardless of sickness or death, and
Wow.
lived his faith all the way to the very last moment. So really
He's
powerful
a
man.
happy man in heaven right
Oh,
now.
he's a really happy man in
And
heaven.
you'll see him someday.
Yep. Yeah, I will.
Exciting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this journey. So
Yeah.
I knew you guys. I was actually pretty close to you guys when he
Yeah.
had ALS,
Yes, you were really
and you were
supportive.
caring for him.
Hmm.
And so how did that, like, did something happen in there? Because that's kind of after he passed, I sort of lost regular
Yeah.
connection with you.
No, definitely.
And how did that lead to what you're doing now, or
Yeah.
did it?
Oh, it did. Yeah. Not right away. I felt like I wasn't supposed to do anything. That's why, I mean, I was still going to church and I was still around, but I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I was supposed to do any type of ministry, any type of giving to others for at least 2 years. So I kind of went quiet for 2 years to heal.
Your response to his death, what was that?
I was okay.
You were?
Yeah, I really was. I was
And your
sad,
kids?
of course. They were very, very sad, but
Yeah.
they were still believing. They were still,
Loving God.
trusting, loving God, and everything like that. My oldest had the hardest time
Yeah,
because
I
she
bet.
remembered everything.
Yeah.
But then the other ones still held on to faith, and they were still able to go through it. But they also experienced, obviously, so much grief and pain
Yeah.
that the reason why I developed the compassion method was because I couldn't control him dying. Even though we prayed and we believed all the way to the end, I couldn't control him dying. But statistically, if you lose a child during you lose a parent during early childhood development, you're statistically like going to have a terrible life, you
Yeah.
know? And I read thing after thing after thing.
I
and
lost my dad at 3, so
Yes, exactly.
I could attest to that.
Yes, there's so many things. Even if it ends up being better,
Yeah, I'm turned around, but
it handicaps you in
Yeah.
so many emotional ways. And so I decided I'm going to find how to process pain.
so you thinking I'm handicapped?
Not handicap.
Finally, it's explained to me.
You're like, no wonder.
Exactly.
No, but lack.
Yeah, exactly.
When you don't have a mom and a dad be there for you, you
Yeah.
lack. And so that was that's the emotional need aspect of it that I highlight really strong with the compassion method. I highlight trauma and I highlight the triggers and the pain that comes from that, but even more so, emotional needs.
Yeah.
Because I knew my kids weren't going to have a dad, even though my brothers stood in the gap and other people came in
Yeah.
and they were there. We were never left alone. We were always okay.
Yeah, you got a big family.
Yeah, we do. And so we were able to be, taken care of. But there's something about a father being there for his child that I knew they weren't going to be able to receive in that tangible way.
Yeah.
So that's when I started studying the neuroscience of emotional needs and how important it is for them to be able to
So
receive
the compassion method, maybe explain in an overview, first of all, because
Yeah.
I've never heard that
that.
phrase.
Yeah.
So what in a simple phrase, like what
Yeah.
is a compassion method?
So very simple. The compassion method teaches people how to feel their pain, get comfort, get their emotional needs met, to go play.
To go to what?
To go play.
To go play. So it's a pathway to health and wholeness and joy.
Yes, and by recognizing how the wounds that we experience cause us to have emotional reactions
Yes.
and behaviors, and everyone's always trying to behavior modify to change people's behaviors, but really it's the lack behind the behavior that needs to be addressed. And so
Yeah.
that's the focus of it. So instead of trying to get people to behave differently, it's if we can get full, then
Yeah.
we will be able to behave differently.
Yeah. So instead of a symptomatic cure,
Yes.
you're actually dealing with the root issue.
Yes.
And you're not doing behavior modification. Obviously, your behavior is modified, but it's coming from the inside out.
Overflow, yeah.
So now let's talk through like the practice of what is it you're actually doing. So you have
Yeah.
somebody who has a trauma,
Yep.
like you did or
Yeah.
like I did,
Yes.
and what's the process look like?
So we recognize on a neurological level that 0 to 12 years old, you're developing how you're going to process pain for the rest of your life.
Got it.
And so we go back to early childhood development to be able to not only help heal the pain, but meet emotional needs and help be restored to God's original design before we experience the knowledge of good and evil, before we experience pain.
Got it.
So when we go back to those memories, we're able to, we can't change memories. A lot of times people want to like, if I could, I'd like to just go back and be like, your dad never died and you lived a happy life and it was really great.
Yeah, that's called fantasy.
And that's called fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's fantasy imagination.
Yes.
But we have another imagination called vivid imagination.
Okay.
And the vivid imagination is being able to recognize real people, real events that you received, what you were meant to receive, that your parents, whether they're alive or not, weren't able to give you. And if you can find people, real people, to stand in the gap for what our parents couldn't give us, our brain, through vivid imagination, says, I received it. Because it's not fantasy imagination. If it's actually receiving the true affection of a mom and dad standing in the gap.
So you're saying that if you're, in your case, your kids lost their dad, and some of them under the age of 12. So
yes. All of them under the age of 12.
All of them under the age of 12. So you're saying that you work with your kids not to live in a fantasy of their dad's not gone, but live in the reality of they have a good father from heaven who stood in the gap and played the role of earthly / heavenly father in their life.
But then I actually take it a little bit different direction.
Okay.
100% true. Raise my kids all knowing God, that we have a heavenly father. But the twist is that we actually have to have a tangible person stand in the gap.
Okay.
Because even Jesus, from 0 to 12 years old, had a mom and dad stand in the gap for his heavenly father, not tangibly being able to hold him, feed him, protect him, take care of him.
Got it.
And so when we receive that, it now opens the door for those moms and dads to be the tangible representation of an intangible God.
And where do you find those dads, moms?
So God knew
Yeah.
what was going to happen to all of us. He knew what was going to happen to you. He knew you were going to lose your dad at 3 years old.
Yeah.
And from the moment you were conceived, the moment that you were born, he was sending, I call them gift givers.
Yeah.
He was sending moms and dads. And even though I know you had your mom,
Yeah.
we still count all, I feel like I'm a good mom, but I still couldn't give my kids everything.
Yeah.
Because I had lack too.
Yeah.
But he's sending moms and dads, and they come in all different forms. They come in teachers. They come in a friend's mom or dad. They come in a pastor. They come in all these different forms that God knew we were going to need because he knew we didn't get our emotional needs met.
Got it.
And so he's sending those needs in form of real, tangible people.
So part of what you're teaching people probably, I'm guessing, like, please feel free to correct or edit.
Of course,
is how to receive those people, right? Because
exactly,
I'd say 75% of the people said no one ever
exactly.
Came into my
That's
life,
exactly
right?
what people say.
Yeah. And so what's that look like?
That's a really fun. I call it a treasure hunt.
Okay.
So people don't have eyes to see it or heart to receive it because they never knew it. If you never knew a mom or dad to give you certain types of love, like being seen and being protected and having affection, you don't know what it looks like.
Got it.
So you say nobody is there because I never saw it. So then what we do is we connect a felt experience. What did it feel like when that pastor looked you in the eyes and said, I hear you? What was that felt experience?
Yeah.
There was an exchange that happened that actually has substance to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it the compassion method, because the needs carry compassion.
Yeah.
They carry the intimacy and connection that allows our brain to receive being heard.
Got it.
And then when that moment is given back to our early childhood development, I always look at it like breaking bread.
Yeah.
If I had an exchange with someone where I really felt like they heard me, it's not enough for my adult self to hear it, because guess what will happen? Then I'll leave that event and think nobody ever hears me. Every adult that wasn't heard actually needs to receive an early childhood development to be heard now.
And so is this like a little bit like definitely I'm no expert in psychology, but this is like healing the inner child kind of an idea?
Definitely healing the inner child, for sure, but more through the vivid imagination than the fantasy imagination.
So exercise, let's talk about exercise.
Yeah.
So you have somebody that, at 12 years old lost their, or below 12 years old, lost their whatever, a parent, or had some traumatic experience that they're still carrying, almost like PTSD or some dysfunction, and you're ministering to them.
Yes.
So what exactly are you doing?
So what I'm doing is I'm taking present day experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had big emotions connected to something
Yeah.
that, let's say it was about, something that's happening present day, finances,
Yeah.
a relationship, I'm going to have big reactions because I actually have a wound
Got it.
that's causing me to react.
Got it.
Excuse me. That reaction is actually leading me to the wound.
Got
So
it.
if I follow the reaction to the wound,
Got it.
then I can actually have that person experience and feel the wound and the pain that they experienced at that moment, or the lack. Sometimes it's a wound, sometimes it's lack.
Got it.
So if, for example, if someone really felt like they weren't heard, they
Yeah.
never feel heard, nobody ever listens, which is very common. Then you go back to a time in your early childhood development where you didn't feel heard. Then you would bring a mom or a dad to stand in the gap, which could be all those different genres like I was talking
Yeah.
about, but a real tangible man or woman or
human.
both, a human, tangible touch, to be able to go back to that 5-year-old that didn't feel heard. When that 5-year-old feels heard by those real people that they've had a real experience with, their brain says, it happened, because it did happen. It's just being reapplied to a different file in our brain, taking a present day file and being able to apply it to a different part of our brain.
Got it. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome because
and it
you
works.
get it.
That's
works.
what matters, right?
That's it, because we have neuroplasticity that allows our brain to go back to any time. God
Wow.
created our brains that we could go back to 3 years old, and it's real because it's a file in your brain that we're reaccessing to give you what you needed.
How does compassion act as a bridge between understanding trauma and pain and facilitating healing? What does the compassion piece?
So compassion is the most powerful force ever. Jesus was moved with compassion and healed all those that came from him. It's, again, I know it keeps saying felt experience.
Yeah.
But people had a felt experience with real, tangible Jesus, and that experience healed them physically, mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally. That's my belief. I know it doesn't always highlight that, but they talk about mental illness. They talk
Yeah.
about all different things. So spiritually, mentally, physically healed through compassion.
Wow.
But compassion's such an extraordinary thing because it's not sympathy. It's not pity. It's actually being with a person in their pain, in who they were created to be. So Jesus made space to be with. An act of being with was actually the process of receiving compassion.
Like you have to mourn with those who mourn. So to speak.
Exactly.
So compassion.
Yep.
So sympathy is I can feel bad for you, but I'm
Yeah.
not actually in your
I'm
pain.
not with you.
And pity is I feel bad that you had pain,
Yes.
but I'm still not in your pain.
I'm still not with you. You're over there and I'm over here.
Got it.
Compassion connects to empathy that says, even if our pain's not the same,
Yeah.
I felt pain before,
Yeah.
so I'm willing to humble myself to feel my pain, to be with you in your pain.
Okay. So now, so you got my brain working right here.
Go ahead.
I'm hoping my inner child doesn't pop out of my mouth
It's
right
okay.
now.
I really like the inner child, so that's okay.
Give me an example. Like, tell me a story.
Story.
Tell me a story of somebody who came to you, like had a situation. You don't have to tell me their names, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
It would be private. But
Yes.
like, give me an example of where they were, where they are now, and
Yeah.
how is the process, and how long is that process? Like, let's
It's interesting. So the process, how long it takes, it varies for different people. So
Okay.
some people will go for one session and they get it, and they're able to keep doing it for themselves.
how long is the session?
An hour.
Okay.
1 hour always. And then some people will come for weeks, some people will come for months. I usually recommend 6 times of meeting because it helps
Okay.
you. We're creating a system for you to be able to do on your own. That's
Got
always
it.
my goal. So I call myself a life consultant because I'm consulting someone's life for them to be able to do it for themselves.
Got it.
So I'm teaching people how to do it for themselves, which I think is so important. But
So if they have another trauma later on, they
Yep,
can
they know
actually use the
exactly what to
principle
do.
to come back to the same thing.
yeah, it's always exciting hearing them be able to go to very traumatic places and know exactly what to do because we're not scared of it anymore.
Got it.
So you would come in.
Okay.
Usually people come in because they're having marriage problems. They're having work problems. I work actually with businesses as well. They'll
Got it.
come in and just say, everything's a mess. I don't know what to do. I'm yelling at my wife. I don't know what to do.
Got
So
it.
then I say, let's talk about that. We don't talk about, I can actually help somebody without knowing anything about their life.
Got it.
0. All I need is the pathway of their emotions. Your external circumstances are really nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So you're as you said earlier,
Yeah.
someone has a reaction, and like you grab onto that reaction like a rope, and you're
Yes.
like, that'll lead me back to the pain.
Exactly.
And then the pain will lead me to the problem, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yep. So then all I need to know is how it made them feel.
Okay.
So we spend so much time trying to fix our external world, where really it's all about our internal world. So I help them be able to understand what they're feeling. That's a big first step. A lot of people are avoiding pain. We all are. I am avoiding pain. We're all avoiding pain. So to help people feel their pain, remember how I said before, to be able to receive comfort, to be able to let go.
Okay.
That's what forgiveness is. That's what being able to be free is. That's what freedom is being able to experience that. So first step is feel your pain.
Okay.
Second step is recognizing what you need. And third step is being able to bring compassion in to be able to meet that need that wasn't met before. And then we're taking present day big reactions
Yeah.
and we're leading them back to early childhood development when we first experienced that lack or that pain.
Got it.
And then we're bringing in, like I said, the gift givers. Once they have brought that in, we're coming back to them knowing and connecting to their inner child. This is a key thing. Most psychology inner healing models only go back to heal pain. They don't go back to know who we were created to be before we got covered up with pain.
Got it.
So one of the key differences is we're going back to know that 3-year-old,
Got it.
to know who he was created to be, the unique characteristics that make up who he is.
Got it.
Because his pain matters, but he matters more.
Got it. So do you have like you've probably done this with hundreds of people,
Yeah,
I
I've been
guess.
doing it for 10 years. So
Like, do you have
Quite
an
a few
example
people.
of someone you helped?
yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you kind of tell their story?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so gentleman was here in Reading, going to school.
Yeah.
Ended up having a nervous breakdown, which
Okay.
he publicly talks about. So
Yeah.
it's not, a huge, deal to share. But had a nervous breakdown, was hospitalized multiple times.
Wow.
Was super scared, had been a really stable person his whole life.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's in the hospital because he's having panic attacks and he's
Yeah.
having a nervous breakdown and he doesn't know what to do.
Yep.
So someone tells him to come see me. So he comes to see me and he's thinking there is just like the worst possible things under the surface there, because if I'm having this severe of a
Yeah,
reaction,
exactly.
then like it must be horrible. He was
Yeah.
raised in a Christian home. He had no, we all have some trauma, but he had
Yeah,
no
of course.
like extreme trauma.
Yeah.
But he was emotionally suppressed and emotionally shut down to such a degree that the panic attacks and anxiety is a messenger saying, help.
Yeah.
We're trapped inside of ourselves. We need help.
Yeah.
So if we won't listen mentally and we won't listen emotionally, our body will tell us
Yeah.
that we're having a big reaction
That's
right now.
so good.
So he comes in, doesn't want to do any child work. He's like, that's not the problem.
Yeah.
I'm in the hospital. I was in
Yeah.
the hospital last night. That's the problem. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about my inner child. Like, that has nothing to do with it. I'm like, it has everything to do with it. Because how you reacted last night in the hospital with your nervous breakdown was exactly how you felt when you were a little kid. That
Got
was
it.
the intense terror you felt. That was the out of control feeling. That was that big emotion that you felt. You felt it then. And it's just manifesting now because 0 to 12 years old, you're going to repeat that the rest of your life.
Wow.
So we
That's so
go
good.
back to that trauma place of his dad was he was a farmer. They live in the Midwest. And he was very intense, like not like yelling and screaming, but super high expectation, very young age,
know people
working
like
super
that.
hard. And
Hey, don't be talking about me. And it better not have been one of my kids.
it's so cute. But anyways, he had that pressure, that
Yeah.
constant pressure.
Yeah.
And if he had, and when he was a young boy, when he was 5 years old, he was doing like farm equipment at that age, because that's
Yeah.
what you did in the Midwest. Maybe he's 7, I can't remember exactly, but very young.
Yeah.
He did something wrong. He didn't push the pedal.
Yeah.
Something. I
He's
can't remember
driving
the
the
details.
tractor.
Yeah, he's driving the tractor and something bad happens
Yeah.
and it makes a big mess. And his dad comes and just kind of, without yelling, just lays into him. And he's 5 years old and he starts to cry. And his dad says, I never want to see you do that again. This is your mess. You're going to clean it up. I don't want to ever see you express it like that. Don't cry.
Oh, don't cry.
Don't cry.
Big boys don't cry.
Big boys don't cry. We're Midwest. We're farmers.
Yeah.
We don't cry. I don't cry. You don't cry. Nobody cries. So he tells him that. So he sucks it in for the next 45 years.
So he doesn't have an expression of what's going on. So he doesn't get to because tears and crying, it's like it really does wash away your pain. Like it is a
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
blessed are those who mourn, for they
Yeah.
shall be comforted. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So see how I knew that part.
Yeah.
So
That's a key part.
if you don't mourn, you don't get comfort.
Exactly.
So if somebody shuts you down, so it's wrong, illegal,
Yep.
not manly, whatever, to mourn,
Yep.
then you don't ever finish the process of
You never
being
do.
comforted. Yeah.
It's trapped right there.
Yeah.
That 5-year-old brain went like this, and it was trapped for 45 years.
Wow.
And things come and poke at it, and we have reactions, and we suppress them back down again. We have
Wow.
reactions, and we suppress them back down again until we go back and make it right. And so he brought his coach in. He had a coach that was just there for him all the time. He played like 4 years of baseball or something like that.
Yeah.
And that coach was there all the time, cheering him on, helping him. And one time he cried during a game when he was somewhere
Yeah.
around that same age, 8 or 9 years
Yeah.
old. And that coach comforted him
Wow.
and said, "It's okay to cry. And I'm right here with you," the whole thing. So he had completely forgotten about it. When I said, "Who can come and stand in the gap for how your dad treated you in that moment?" And the really cool thing about it, it's not about villainizing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about villainizing the dad. He just had big reactions too.
Yeah.
But just because he had big reactions doesn't mean there wasn't a wound there from the reactions.
Yeah.
And so that coach could come in and be with him. And so all of a sudden he's bawling, and he said he
Wow.
hadn't cried in years and
Wow.
years and years. He's bawling because that love, that comfort healed that suppressed emotion that's been there for 45 years.
Did that heal his nervous breakdown?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He's
See, I'll raise
yeah.
my kids completely different. When they cry, I never said, "Don't cry." I just said, "I'm going to give you something to cry about." So that was a lot better.
It's okay. It's really easy.
It's
I'll teach
okay.
you how to do this. You can go help
It's
them.
okay.
It's never too late. Neuroplasticity.
I just want to send you my 4 kids, and they're probably still like, my dad said, "I'm going to give you something to cry about."
Yeah.
And it usually didn't. So we ask everybody this question: what does it mean to be a cultural catalyst?
It means to be so full within yourself, to be so okay, which my definition of okay is clear-minded, tender-hearted, at peace. That you can go into any environment and be okay no matter what.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
It is.
Really powerful. So how can people get in touch with you? Or have you trained up people to do this? Or are
Yeah,
you
I
the
just
only ones?
graduated this year, and it's really fun that I'm meeting with you too, is I graduated first, second, and third year.
Really?
Yeah, I just finished my first, second, and third. And third year wants a fourth year. We'll see what happens with that. And then
What's that mean first, second? What do you mean you graduated?
So I had.
Oh, you started a school.
Yeah, I
That
started
was
a school
3
teaching
years.
people to be compassion method consultants. Yeah.
And it took them a year to learn?
To really get it really deep
Yeah.
for all of our programming that we
Yeah.
need to have rewired. Our adult self is like a website.
Yeah.
You can't change a website. So we do all these things to try to get better, and we just keep going back to the same thing over and over again because we have to change the coding
Yeah.
to change the website.
Got it.
So it can take a year to change the coding
Wow.
so that we can actually be restored to who God originally designed us
How
to
many
be.
people have you graduated so far?
Let's see. Probably I don't know exactly. So all my first years were about 25 students,
Got
and then it would go down for second and third year, so it was
Yeah.
smaller. So probably about a little over 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how can people get this kind of ministry?
Yeah, so
do,
I
do
have-
you charge for it? Like,
I
what-
do
what's the-
charge for
what's the
one-on-ones for
expectation?
sure.
Got it.
So I have multiple different ways.
Okay.
Number one, free.
Okay.
I have a podcast,
Okay.
and I go in and teach.
What's
these.
let's see, do I have it here?
I'm not sure. It's called Triggered and True.
Triggered and True. And are you sorry, I don't have the note here. Hey, let's put that in the chat.
Okay.
So we can get right
Yeah.
to it.
So triggeredandtrue.com
Okay.
is a podcast where I have a male co-host. He's actually the one. He's in the Midwest. He's married. He's got 4 beautiful kids. We actually aren't in person because he moved back to the Midwest after school.
This is the guy you told a
And-
story about?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
And he shares it publicly on the podcast
Okay,
too, so
got
it's
it.
cool.
Got it.
But all that to say, he is a co-host with me because I wanted to reach men as well as women, and sometimes emotional health is more focused on
Yeah.
women, and I wanted women and men to experience. So when he's able to share his story of his nervous breakdown as a man with suppressing his emotions, I feel like it's
Beautiful.
helpful to men because I can share my story too, but I think male and female kind of process pain differently.
Yeah.
So we co-host that. That's a free resource. I think we have like 50 episodes on there, but it's practical. It's teaching you how to go through this process.
It's all free.
Yep, all free. free.
Okay.
Second, I have a course
Okay.
that people can buy and sign up for, and it's leading you through with like practical steps of how to do this process.
And is
Everything's
that on the same
practical.
website?
Same website, yeah. Well, Laura Duncan, lauraduncan.com.
LauraDuncan.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then I have where people can meet with me one-on-one, but I've
Yeah.
been doing this for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of gone a little away from meeting so much one-on-one just because
Yeah.
I did it for so many years. I still do, and
Yeah.
people can still sign up to meet with me, but I'm trying to help people be educated and learn how to
Yeah.
process it themselves.
Okay. So thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having
I'm
me.
working on my inner child right
I know,
here.
I'm glad.
Men and women do process pain
do
differently.
process pain
Like
differently.
we get a stick, we just bite on it, and we just push right through. That's how we do it. LauraDuncan.com.
Yeah.
That's how you can get in touch with her. And thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
I so appreciate
Yeah, thank
you and love your family.
Yeah.
And my salvation to your family and their friends. So
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching. Check us out next week too. Cultural Callus. We love to change the world with you. God bless.